Thank you for taking out time. I mean, thanks to audience. We could at least have so many to kind of participate here. And thank you very much, all of my panelists. If you're okay, I'm comfortable standing and just moderating. So if you, I mean, you can all come closer as well if you're comfortable. Because at least it'll start to look a little more cozier. If you just come in. Let's not be backbenchers. Let's start coming. Come in. Let's come a little ahead. The last benchers, come in. You will not have any. You can escape from here as well. Don't worry. If it's not sounding good, you can escape from here as well. Okay, so we have 2 Australians on this panel, 2 Indians. So let's see what the score comes out here. But anyway, without any intention, I think. Yeah, there's a divide here. Yeah, but I think very interesting topic. I've been myself, going through a lot of this. Of course, I have an opportunity to be on the agency side, on the network side, on the marketing side as well. So seeing from all these 3 sides, I've been myself reading a lot about the DSPs, RTBs, and to be honest with you, this whole programmatic buying actually looks to me very problematic. So I will touch upon my fellow panelists, well represented by Group M with Tushar, who runs a very successful digital media agency and a very successful agency trading desk with Xaxis. Senthil, who is head of product at Ozone, very learned on the whole topic. We have the Robbie from Google, who of course sees it across Asia Pacific on that, and of course Julian from BrandScreen. I met Julian. I had an opportunity to meet Julian about 1.5 years, 2 back when he was starting all this. So very interesting. Okay, is there any advertiser here in this hall? Oh, interesting. We have few crores of budget here for sure. Fantastic. So, okay. So let me start that when I started reading about a lot about this topic, my biggest problem was, and where I couldn't figure out, that in the traditional media environment, just about 2 years, 3 years back, or even 1.5 years back, there was media plans getting made. Okay, this much to search, this much to Facebook, this much to Rediff, this much to Yahoo, this much to X network, Y network, etc., etc. When this whole thing comes and even display now gets back into programmatic buying, the plans will shrink. The relationship between advertiser and the consumer or his audience will shrink. In this whole environment, I want to start with what is the role each one will do on display advertising. Everyone's clear about search. We all buy search on Google. Everyone's clear about social is equal to Facebook. Display is still very fragmented. With DSPs, this is all coming into one console. Hope everybody understands this. So what has DSPs and RTBs done in a nutshell is that it has brought majority of display impressions in the similar fashion like we were buying search, in a nutshell. So now even display should not, in my opinion, be planned like, okay, buy this, buy that, until unless it is not available over an exchange, right? So I just want to go very quickly with one person each to say, in this whole DSP and RTB environment, what is your role? What do you do? And what is that, for an advertiser perspective, how should he look at you? So maybe we can start with BrandScreen very quickly.
So I want to put that in context and say that, and I'm going to generalize terribly, in the old days, advertisers had to go out, they had to go through the media and they had to negotiate something with the media, and that, let's call that the business of buying media placements. This new paradigm, which we all talk about as DSPs or RTB or automation, really what's driving this, and I think the single is getting back control of their audience. You shouldn't accept other people owning those consumers. They're your consumers, you run them, here's the technology, and that's what we bring. We bring those platforms into life.
So BrandScreen brings those platforms where you can operate on. I want to be very, very clear.
BrandScreen builds the platforms that lets the agencies, let's call them trading desks, operate and build these pools of advertisers and manage our return on investment desks around APAC.
You are basically a platform which is connecting to majority of the supply pools of the world of display advertising. Is that correct?
Right, so we have, across, to create more confusion in the market, exchanges that are popping up in countries, in Japan and China as well, we integrate into.
So you are basically helping advertisers through its other, through his, whether an agency or a network, get onto this platform to...
They were very, very similar to what Julian just described. We have our product Invite, a double-click bid manager, sits in at the agency trading desk, sits in at large advertisers.
And PubMatic and Rubicon and all these supply side.
They're all
So so basically guys, and I'm sorry I'm getting a little more basic, these are tools that are collecting supply, that are collecting impressions. So those are those kind of tools, Rubicon, PubMatic, etc., etc., etc. Now, what these guys have done, which are DSPs, have built a platform over that, which is collecting supply from all these tools under their single platform and making it available to all the advertising agencies. So basically, if they have more exchanges, a large part of inventory comes to them on their platform, and we can all have access to that. And that could be in multi-format and multi-screen. It could be mobile, it could be video, it could be any form of display, correct?
Do you mind if I add one thing to that?
Sure.
Because the picture there is absolutely right of, let's call it lots of aggregation, lots of big pipes into a big box, which, you know, then in the middle is essentially the market. It's every internet impression out there. But there's one other really, really important thing, that in itself wouldn't work. What needs to happen at that point is there needs to be a common way of identifying individual users within that ecosystem. And that's what RTB supports.
Agreed.
A common way of identifying that.
I completely agree.
That was my comment.
And I want to come to the India side, and therefore I want to, once the role shifts, so now these guys have given the platform, now the role shifts. So Senthil at Ozone. Now if advertiser has all the access to this inventory, right? Just, even my mom can get onto this platform of brand screen and, buy inventory.
No, not your mom.
Yeah. What is the role of a network in this whole thing? Now, if we were earlier, I also run a network, we were all aggregators and we were manually aggregating. These guys have gone ahead and automatically aggregated. What are we supposed to do now?
See, in one way, shape or form, a network is eventually a middleman.
Sure.
Right? What networks do best is, in a situation where there are inefficiencies, you can go out, strike deals with publishers on one end, strike deals with advertisers on the other end, and help deliver the advertisers' goals while making sure that the publisher's yield targets are met. Now, what we have been discussing so far in terms of technology and in terms of being able to go on and allow your mom to operate the technology is all great when you have access to all the impressions out there in the world, right? Unfortunately, that stage has not come yet, right? It might at some point of time, but there are still publishers who are really skittish about putting their inventory on a technology platform. Even if you look at the case of the US, it's probably about 37% of the impressions served there at this point of time, which are available through a programmatic channel. India is far, far behind.
So
that.
network will network will buy inventory which is practically not available on these platforms. Is that what you're saying?
So that is one part of it, right?
Okay.
Which is a core part of it, at least in today's world, and in, let's say, at least the medium term.
In my opinion, most of the inventory, and gentlemen, correct me if I'm wrong, most of the inventory in this world, other than key publishers, very high, the Yahoos of the world, etc., which have, problems of not putting their inventory on exchange, probably may not be available on exchange. In my opinion, 100% of their inventory in the next 12 months to 24 months will be available on exchanges. Correct me if I'm wrong. Right?
No, but the most important thing is 100% of the audience.
As well.
That's what's important.
Audience, so you can reach 100% of the audience through these DSPs.
Yeah.
Even if you don't have access to maybe some inventories which are not available on DSPs, but you can reach to 100% of the audience. You don't need to plan or take guys who are not even available. Sorry.
No, fair enough. I think though the second part of what I said is potentially key, right? You're talking about today's world where not everything is exchange enabled or programmatically enabled, and tomorrow it could be. But eventually it's about helping an advertiser reach certain goals, right?
Yep.
And if someone has the in-house expertise, if they have the ability, if they have the scale to support a team that is able to do this and go and strike a deal with a DSP in order to fine-tune their campaigns, optimize it, and so on, great, more power to them. But there's still a large chunk of advertisers who are not able to do this.
So enablers of, so basically manpower to run these platforms, or or understanding to run these platforms better. Driver of a car.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Understood. Agency. Traditionally, if I was an advertiser, I would use use an agency. My pitches to people would be, hey, you know what, you don't know how to buy inventory. I know how to buy inventory. I can buy cheaper inventory. Now, all that my mind has now become into an algorithm. So a buyer's mind has gone into an algorithm. There are only 3 major channels which inventory has to be bought, because now 100% of the audience is available on either search, social, or these platforms. So, in my opinion, a media planner's job, and sorry for being critic, but a media planner's job has only become to buy on Google's automated bid keyword, buy on Facebook's automated keyword, and buy on either of these gentlemen's platforms' automated keyword. And then if this reaches 100% of the audience, why do we need, so media planners essentially become a operator of this thing. Is there any other, what is the role of an agency after everything is available online?
In fact, I have to.
Of a media agency.
In fact, if I have to take your sort of discussion to next level, in a year's time, it's not going to be 3, it will be 1. So even Search Social and the display ecosystem are merging, and Robbie will agree with some of the initiative on their side. So it's going to be, I think, unified, and basically it's boiled down to audiences. So traditionally, agency's strength is going to be sort of marrying brands and audiences, and that still remains, right? That's our core focus. However, the language and syntax are changing. So maybe a few years back, I'm just getting into in the offline era. But when we used to talk about TV, we used to talk about socioeconomic class and SEC and age group and stuff like that. With Google coming, it moved to context, right? In what context you are talking to audiences. And with the RTB coming, it's more to now areas like behavior and stuff like that. So the way you sort of cluster your audience, where you sort of slice and dice your audiences is changing, and that's where the agencies are going to play the role. So if I have to say, there are 2 roles. One is understanding audiences and interpreting data, and identifying your best performing audience, which can be potential customer. And second part is audience discovery. Once you slice the data, you have to sort of plan how to reach those guys, right? So you created a bucket of, say, 2 million customer, which is your target audience, with various parameters. And in this RTB environment, it can be few hundred parameters also. Then second task is to reach how to find them, and that's where the tools like what Julian and Robbie has mentioned will come handy. So that's where we play the execution role. So we'll continue to play the planning and execution role, in my view.
Okay. And I think, just on top of that,
Yeah,
I mean,
please.
I think an agency, whether they're, is, doing all of that, you talk at the start. At the start is talking about, all of these different channels to market. You still need, as an advertiser and a marketer, an agency playing that strategic role in determining it's not just 1, 2, or 3. It's like, well, do I need to put my sponsorship of a homepage? Do I need to integrate content?
Completely.
There's so many other channels to market, and I think they're fundamentally the agency role, the trading desk role is going to evolve over time. So I think that this is a very key part of this whole ecosystem.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's sort of 2 discussions happening in parallel, and we're having them both, which is great. One part is, hey, I'll just throw out some numbers. You've got an advertiser. That advertiser has 5 or 10% of their budget in performance, and that a little bit of branded media is happening as well in display and video and social. So you've got let's say a small part of the overall budget, small but decent part of the overall budget is happening, and then the question is asked, how do you execute on that? Isn't it just a matter of getting someone to sit at the controls and push that through? Shouldn't that be simple? What does an agency, what does a network do? And that's a sort of a limit as far as that question goes. If the world was that simple, really it would come down to having a relatively small added value. It really would be saying just execute this campaign for 5% of the advertiser's budget. But in fact, the separate discussion and the much larger and important discussion, which we are all having at AdTech and in different business fora, is that the entire world is becoming digitized. Advertisers are having to relate to their customers completely differently. The stakes have gone up enormously with smartphone penetration. The world of, if you like, advertiser to customer relationships is changing dramatically. And this is not just about advertising, it's about transactions, it's about communication, and all of that gets tied together at some point, at the point where the advertiser says, that's my consumer over there, that's my loyal consumer, that guy's got an app, this lady here has been to my shop, that person over here drives my car, that person here is in my CRM. So these guys have more than enough strategic, creative, and commercial challenges, and I don't envy their model at all. I think I think in a way we build some very sophisticated technology.
But you've shrunk.
But that's
You've shrunk, right?
That's hard stuff.
Yeah, sure, but you've shrunk this
I
for
think
now
Manish,
it's more simpler, right?
I think the question to ask is what skill set tomorrow's agency will have rather than what agency will do, right? So that's
Sure,
the difference.
sure. Is it from an advertiser standpoint, from an agency, we are basically looking at optimizers and we are also looking at creative inputs. You're absolutely right. There are times when it is the home pages need to be bought, etc., etc. But all I was coming at the point that guys, the world has become much simpler with these with DSPs and RTBs, and today it is no more much of challenge. In fact, the world has only become better because now you can store your data, you can retarget, you can reach out to your consumer on the display advertising, make him more targeted. Display advertising has become will start to give better ROIs. Whether you're a performance marketer or a brand marketer, slicing and dicing of data. So all I'm saying is that the shift from buying will go to optimization.
It's about efficiency. So
it's about efficiency
but
now.
efficiency into the system.
It's about efficiency.
And not just about the efficiency. Ultimately, it's about the fact that DSPs have enabled pipes, right? They've enabled pipes into inventory, which anyone can tap into.
Sure.
Right? And in tomorrow's world, when it's 100% enabled, that pipe carries 100% of the world's inventory.
Yeah.
The question is, how do you strategically or efficiently utilize this inventory? Do you want to say that there are specific impressions, specific people, specific categories, specific contexts in which you want to advertise? And that is what will eventually help achieve an advertiser's goal.
Absolutely. So the shift of discussion has moved from now buying to or planning to data. Is that correct?
No,
Most of the advertisers should do
I don't
those
think
kind of
so.
discussions.
I don't think so. I think that's the wrong point to
Okay.
have it. I still think that the advertiser needs to. I mean, I'm going to break this down into very, very large, generalized steps. The advertiser is still in this new world, whatever we're going to call it, is still having to decide how am I going to relate to my customer, and it's a lot more complex because they've got a lot more opportunity and imperative to connect with those customers directly. Then they are still going back to the very same things that agencies and everyone else has done for years, which is how do I tell stories to those customers? How do I engage those customers?
No, Robbie,
Right?
Julian, but that's fine. Sorry, I'm breaking
But I
your
agree
head.
but right down the end then is how do I execute against those customers? And then the platforms come in.
No, sure, I'm breaking it down here, but is that, and maybe Tushar, you can answer this question, maybe anyone can punt on it, that the fact is that today even the advertiser is having a discussion, say, get me lower CPC, right? Okay, that's an ultimate discussion, but is that with DSPs coming, shouldn't the discussion more be how are you using my data, how are you using people who have come onto my platform? The last year I have spent 10 crore rupees, what has happened to that data? How can DSPs help me kind of reach back to those data? Shouldn't discussions be around that or still being buying around
Well, I think
buying?
what you're talking about, collection of first-party data. An advertiser needs to be able to build up.
Which is all possible because of DSPs now.
Well, no, it's not a problem. You've always been able to build up your data. It's what you actually do with it and how you do it. And I think one of the things in India that we need to focus on, we need to sort of probably start walking before we start running down the track, is to collect that data. There's not a lot of people actually collecting that data on a first-party basis. And the thing that underpins all of that data collection is third-party ad serving. So the ability to third-party ad serve your campaigns across whatever platforms you're buying allows you to do that. And if you're not
Sure.
doing that, then
So
you're out of the
you're
game.
suggesting, and in fact, Tushar made this point earlier. So Tushar, that do you suggest advertisers to use cross-platform ad serving to make it more better?
I think the point you are making is slightly sort of theoretical because lots of market education required in Indian context. So if
Okay.
you look at in the current environment also, we are very low tech users, so to say, even in digital. And the point he made, and I think not more than 1/4 of market use today third-party ad server. So very basic requirement to start any RTB transaction.
But
So-
then is it not our job to kind of do that? Because, you know, it's basic. Who's losing in that? Advertiser is.
Well, the advertiser's losing it. And that-
Advertiser is losing money in this efficiency, right?
And
It's
so
all-
in markets like Australia or the US or parts of Europe, the ad serving conversation doesn't happen because it's already 100% penetrated to all digital advertisers.
So clients
Yes.
should use ad servers, cross-platform
If
advertisers to
if
serve his own advertising.
if a large multinational, well, large Indian-based advertiser, anyone who's spending advertising across multiple channels, for them to be doing, in my view, a responsible job in terms of collecting their data, managing their spends, they need to be using third-party ad serving.
I'm going to give this opportunity to Tushar. Okay.
For most of the global guys we work, we end up doing ad serving and no question mark because that's a habit, right? That's how they are sort of tune it. But locally we find very difficult, and there is a sort of market structure issue here also. India is a low CPM market, and it's a high on performance on CPC side of market. It's a market structure.
Sure.
So when you add a sort of third-party ad serving cost, it forms a significant chunk of overall media budget.
But do you want to suggest this to
I-
people
I
sitting
actually-
do you want to suggest people sitting here that before there are so many efficiencies now available in the market with all this programmatic buying. I think the first step is that they should, if they're buying media across, they should start using a consolidated ad serving.
Absolutely,
Okay,
absolutely, and that's the way we are
I would-
moving.
I
And
would
they can
actually
actually save
disagree
that
a
kind of
little bit
money,
here.
Absolutely.
that kind of money by using a lot of data
Yeah.
and lot of tools like these, and not save, and the amount which they're spending on ad server, consolidated ad serving, can actually help them
Yeah,
a lot of that.
there is a sort of return to be seen at the end of the day. So
Can I just
Fantastic.
make a point very
I kind of
quick?
disagree with
Absolutely.
that point a little bit.
Yeah.
Thanks, Julian. So
Okay.
I think the key point that Robbie made was large.
Was large.
Large, right? When you talk about large advertisers, okay, and I think Tushar also
1
touched
crore
on this.
plus is large money in India, right? Do you think
So
annually?
at some point of time, you need to figure out how much of your money are you spending on advertising, how much of that money are you spending on digital, and as a proportion of that money that you're spending on digital, what is the incremental cost that you're going to tack on either through ad serving or by having someone to monitor that or manage that. And that is where the difference, which I pointed out earlier in terms of scale, comes in.
What do
If
you,
you
what do you
have
think is that
scale-
value? What do you think is that value? What is large in Indian context?
To tell you the truth, I think it's a number that a very few organizations in India would
Tell
be
me,
able
what's
to
the number?
Well, I can answer straight out because I mean, and I
Not in
really-
Australian dollars.
I really don't want to make this too easy, but the platform brand screen right now, as a matter of policy, when a new advertiser is put in by an agent, by a trading desk or network trading desk, ad serving is 100% free.
Agreed. No, agreed.
That's
I want to,
So,
because there are agencies, advertisers sitting here.
We can't
There-
make
there-
the bar
there-
lower.
No, there are consumers sitting here. So what Julian is saying, these new platforms come with 100% ad serving capability.
Absolutely.
Why should only a large advertiser use it?
also it has to be across platform. It's not, if you are serving only for the programmatic buy and not serving for rest. You
I'm
are
sure
not
it should be
realizing the
cross-platform.
value.
It should be starting from search to social to programmatic buying. Completely
So
agree.
what we have seen,
Can these
right?
all
so,
guys take
yeah.
from here today
So,
that
so
tomorrow
looking,
start,
so looking back at how we have got to this point, right? If you look at a network and you look at the different ways in which we access inventory, right? Traditionally, it was direct buys, right? There's probably an increasing percentage of third-party inventory that networks buy now in order to satisfy the demand. And what we have seen is that, number one, like the pipes are all there, right? So whether it's an invite or the new term for it,
Invite media.
double-click bid manager,
Yeah.
or it's a brand screen, or it's someone else. Eventually, you have access to that inventory, but the question is how well do you use that inventory? In order to do that, right, there are a ton of impressions out there, and especially in a country like India where, frankly, we are talking about advertiser education, publisher education is also required, right? You have people with, like about 20 different ad units on a given page. You have people who have a lot of
It is
impressions below the
central
fold.
for majority of the buying.
And therefore what happens is that a lot of the inventory that gets onto exchanges that is accessible through third party ends up being of relatively, of variable quality. And unless you dedicate, let's say, 2 people, 3 people, 4 people, in order to make sure that you're optimizing the bids, optimizing the inventory that you're buying, you're going to end up losing money. Right? And that's why I'm talking about making sure that before you jump into this as an advertiser, be aware of the fact that this is something that is required as an investment from your side.
Yeah, but those investments get paid off so quickly. Anyway, so I'll take that point. So I think one of the takeaways here is agencies, advertisers, it'll be in your benefit if you start using a common ad serving, whether you're buying X inventory, Y inventory across the screens, whether it's search, social, anything, or display, use your own ad server. Okay. Now those ad servers, okay, I think that's one of the takeaways. There are things. I want to just quickly jump on the point that let's say if people have started using their own ad servers now, okay. How should they collect their data? I think that's fundamentally, I think, another thing why, if they start collecting their data, right? How should they see it, right? Because if they have this data, they can become more efficient buyers. So maybe I can just start with Tushar and come in. Yeah.
So basically, we are bucketing data into 3 layers, right? First party, second party, third party data. So basically, there is first party is the audience level data where you are mapping entire universe. So you have a sort of base level of understanding.
Anyone who is coming to your site is a first party data, right?
So first party for me is entire India's internet audience, hypothetically.
Entire
India's
audience that comes to your own website or your own platform, right? That's
right.
first party data. So collect that in your
Absolutely. So
in
that's
your
a base.
ad server.
Yeah. So that's.
Those are your guys, right? Those
So-
are guys who you've spent money to kind of get in. Sorry.
So for example, we are setting up basically data management platform for our set of clients. So that's where we are collecting some of this information.
Shouldn't advertisers collect this data on their own ad serving?
So the way we work is all the advertiser data is advertiser property and is used only for that
Okay, so
specific
they
advertiser.
can use
so
it
we,
or they can have it on.
we facilitate the process for advertiser, but it's advertiser data
Okay.
which is
Just
sitting
to be
with
clear,
us.
the advertiser is generally not one running the ad serving
Yeah.
platform. Generally, it'll be the agency who's managing that on their behalf.
So that's where basically we are managing the ecosystem for
Okay.
advertiser and we are providing infrastructure to manage that. Right?
Okay.
So that's our role, and subsequently planning on top of it. So that's where
That's
you
the
are.
first party data.
Yeah. So then you're creating a basically second level data, which is advertiser specific data, which can be your campaign behavior, click, website behavior, transaction, and stuff like that. That gets layered. And then there are subsequently third-party data, which of course well-evolved ecosystem in other market, relatively new with options like precision match and stuff like that.
Okay.
But that's a third-party data, sort of you are marrying on top of it. And then you have also various surveys and stuff like that, which you can start meshing up and do modeling on that.
And this is, Tushar, is this required only for a large advertiser or even a small? What is that number, large, small? Because I don't want anyone to go away with the fact that, okay, it's not required for me. Is it everyone's?
It's everyone. It's everyone. So
Everyone.
basically, I would say it's a hygiene. So you can start with that.
It's an hygiene. You should all have it. And one point before I move to Senthil is that because you have this data, you can now efficiently, and I'm repeating this point, you can efficiently buy your display advertising programmatically through these DSPs now. Because it's your own data. Let's say last year you spent 10 crore rupees and there were, let's say, an average 10 rupees per click. 1 crore people you got clicked and came onto it. They're lost. You didn't store them. Correct?
However, in case of benefit, you are not going to realize from the day one. It's a process, right?
It's a process. Completely
which
agree.
Which needs to start.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just to add to that, I think one of the key takeaways for any advertiser over here is make sure that whoever you're working with on a data basis is operating ethically. I think what Tushar said is extremely important, that any information, any data, first party data of yours needs to be siloed. It can only be used for your own campaign. It should not ever, without your permission, be used for any other campaign.
But with your permission, I'm also saying, I think, try it. It's not that rocket science. It is no more. It's not that it's so many jargon thing. It is very easy to do it. Exactly. Robbie, anything on you want to add on this point?
No, I mean, I reiterate the point around data. The data that you generate. If this is hygiene, it should be just part of your day to day. And build up that first party data via what your objectives come back to in terms of what you want to do from a digital marketing point of view. So, for example, if you're a car manufacturer, understand that when people come to your website, what they're doing on your website. Are they filling out a form for a test drive? Are they looking for a certain type of car? Build your first. When we say first-party data, we've sort of been this whole all-encompassing thing, but you can start building up first-party data based on the behaviours of what people are doing on your site. And then once you've got that, then you can actually use that for whatever you're doing, whether it's going through a DSP or whether it's doing remarketing just in general across anything.
Do we need, Julian, I want to answer, move on, next question. Do advertisers, agencies need multiple DSPs or even just one DSP is fine? Because the pipes are the same.
Just brand screen. No, look, there's a really, there's really only a handful of tier one DSP. There's a lot of people out there who say we're a DSP or we're like a DSP. There's really only a handful of companies that have the data centers and have the intelligence layers and own all of that stuff, and everyone else who claims to be sort of uses one of them, and that's one thing. It does make sense at some point for companies to have a multiple DSP strategy if the business is so large and so critical to your future strategic success. So if you are an Omnicom or you are a WPP or you're a publicist, then you probably need to make sure that you have multiple relationships in place to cover different geographies, different client types, different situations. So there is some risk management and there is some relationship management, if you like. But
sure.
But in the end, do you really need it? No.
No. Okay.
And we do see that most settle for one, maximum two in the end.
Yeah.
Okay. So takeaway for people sitting here: get your agency or yourself one DSP to do all your display buying. Invite, brand screen, app nexus. Which are the names? I just want to make it more democratic.
I can't remember.
Oh yeah, I think there's one called.
We don't know.
Yeah,
We
no.
don't know.
Look, I think to Julian's point, there are certainly
Turn and Media Math.
Turn,
would be the
Media
other
Math,
ones. So they're
Double Click
the
Bid
big
Manager, and
five.
Brand Screen.
They're the big
Talk to
five.
these guys. These all guys have the same number of pipes. It's just about who gives you a better rate or who gives you better servicing.
I disagree with that.
Or better technology.
So there's, it's not as if like you're buying something off the shelf. All of them have their own unique
Agreed.
product. The algorithms that are developed. Many DSPs use an off-the-shelf algorithm. Someone like us, Google developed their own algorithm. So and some have different user interfaces, some have different technologies. So to say that they're all the same and cost is the only difference is completely incorrect.
Agreed. Sorry, I take that. I take that back. I
I
take
should
it back.
say
Yeah.
something else. So we know through. So we have 5 extremely expensive data centers across Asia, and we know that the reason we invest like that is because that means our
Agreed. I take it back. No sales
quality-
pitches.
quality of inventory is-
Okay. One important point: agency trading desks. Now, practically, if all the display advertising is available on these DSPs, what is this thing called agency trading desk in between? Tushar?
So basically, that's the role to sort of manage and work with the DSP, and in terms of managing clients' money. So
So basically, that is a desk which is basically operating on, in a simplification manner, that is a desk which is basically people operating on these multiple DSPs to buy advertisers, buy for advertisers more efficiently.
Absolutely, absolutely. As I said, basically.
And if the advertiser has his own DSP, then should they also go to the agency trading
So,
desk?
as I said, there is a basically audience understanding part, and then
Sure.
there is a audience discovery part, and the DSP trading desk role is sort of understanding audiences and executing it in terms of discovery. So that's what precisely we do using the various DSP technology.
We see some clients globally using agency trading desks like Xaxis. We see some clients using their own individual agency to buy it as well. And we also see.
So there are agencies who specialize in just buying
So
off
it
the
might
shelf?
be. So in the example of WPP, a client might use Xaxis to buy their. So they also might use one of the operating companies like Mindshare or MediaCom, their actual media agency to do it themselves. It varies. And we're also increasingly starting to see large direct advertisers managing their display spends as well.
So if
The
you're
most,
large,
the most probably global example of that is someone like Kellogg.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Kellogg globally, out of the US in Battle Creek, is managing their DSP spend.
Agreed.
And
So
now
if you're a large
100%,
advertiser, 100%.
of their
If
spend
you're a
is
large
now
advertiser,
owned-
significant, like you have your own Google account.
in North America.
In North America.
Yeah. So if you're so it's like as simple as this. There is no jargons around it. If you're a significantly okay medium-sized digital advertiser, like you have your own Google relationship on your search, you can have your own DSP relationship directly, which an agency can optimize, or you can go to the agency and say, you know what, I don't want to take that relationship myself. You can please optimize it.
On
for me."
network.
Sorry, on network, okay. So because you guys are seeing it across the world, if we are buying through an agency trading desk, what should be the should commercials be like buying like a network, like people buy network on cost per click, or should it be percentage commissions? How do people work on that?
Well, that's for Tushar. How he
that's
operates. Yeah, that's not us.
No, yeah, sure.
First of all, basically, everything on a sort of RTB environment is not on click. It's on impression. So what you are buying is audience impression, right? That's a
On
basic-
DSPs, you buy on impressions.
That's the basic.
The bid is on impressions, but of course you optimize on click or your any other goal that you have.
Yeah, so there is a various business model exists based on the kind of value you are adding. So are you changing currency? Are you adding any data layer? Are you enriching the inventory? And sort of end sort of rate to client or a price to client is value based. So some of the cases it can be there can be differential based on the value which we are adding.
But it should be closer to like you deal with search agency.
It's slightly it's a bit more than what we do in the search also in some of the areas. So as we just discussed, there's a data layer.
Okay.
And there's optimization layer. So there's a two layer to it compared to in search, it's only optimization layers.
Sure.
So,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no,
sorry,
you're gonna
just,
say something.
just
Yeah,
wanted
after you.
to say, see, eventually any buying on a DSP is going to be on a CPM basis, right? And that is where it becomes critical. So even a trading desk, I mean, really if I look at it, the lines between an agency trading desk and a network and, you know, potentially going forward, even a technology provider would start to blur, right?
The brand skin can go to the client directly and
there's-
say, you know, I'll
there's a-
optimize for you. probably.
There's a continuum between saying that, okay, you know, I am a technology provider and I am a services provider. And you're going to fit somewhere along that scale in between, right? At Ozone, for example, we have moved more and more towards technology, right? In order to supplement what we're doing as, you know, a traditional business. An agency is moving more and more, you know, towards technology again in order to satisfy the advertiser's goals while making sure that they're leveraging the key parts of technology to do that. A technology provider might end up setting up a managed services shop to say that there might be some advertisers who are too small to do their own optimization.
Agreed.
So I'll
So
use
it's,
at
it's
the
very
back end.
simple as Google would come to you guys and say, if you're a very large advertiser, they say, you know, we'll manage for you. Or if you're not medium-sized advertiser, agency will manage for you. Or if you're a very small advertiser, you can manage it on your own. So
And
like you.
that's not true actually.
that? Okay.
Sort of advertiser, most of the large advertisers end up working with the agency. In fact, on the contrary. I would say, again, just going back to earlier point, we are user of technology. We are not a sort of somebody who is managing the technology or creating technology, right? So,
Agreed.
and in many cases, we'll be technology agnostic also. And then we pick and choose technology based on the business requirement and brand requirement.
Okay. So very quickly, we're at the end of this. I just want to go back. But giving you an opportunity, guys, from all the discussion that we've had for last 40 odd minutes, just pick two most important points that you want to give all these guys
Yeah,
a
right.
takeaway for, but non-repetitive.
Yeah.
So,
So-
depends. So Tushar will have a bigger problem. You first.
Okay.
2 points. That's it. Very
so
short.
So I'll make it even one, but I just want to make it.
Don't
very,
say
just,
use
just a
brands.
very quick. I think that all of these acronyms and the big discussions we have around this are sometimes distracting from the overall point that I really hope advertisers and their agencies, networks take away, which is actually this is not hard the moment an advertiser says, you know what, I need to have transparency, I need to have control over my audience,
Absolutely.
and I need to live or die in my business on the basis of performance. If you are an advertiser, or you're an agency that has those kind of advertisers, and they want transparency, they need control, and they're going to live or die on the basis of performance and brand. But you know, if it really, in other words, if it matters, you have to take the first steps towards owning and controlling that audience, and that means taking the first step towards automating in a platform or another.
Shift has gone from planning to optimization to your audience.
You have to have that anchor in
Agreed.
place, and then everything else will come around that.
Robbie, 2 points, or
So-
maybe one.
I can tell you. So I think the first point is you make sure you have your basic digital housekeeping in place.
Yep.
We talked about that earlier. And secondly, to add on to all the things that Julian just said, exactly that. But also what it delivers you is efficiency and scale. So efficiency as either an advertiser, or efficiency, scale, and results. Because those three things on top of the points that Julian made as well means that you can build and grow your business very effectively in a digital way.
Majorly display, because we are very relevant to DSPs. Because
And when we be clear, when we say display,
It's
again,
Facebook too.
it's display and it's mobile, it's tablet,
Yeah.
it's video,
anything that has a graphical form.
anything that's not search.
Yep.
Anything that's not search and social.
Yeah.
Yeah, central.
And search is coming in.
Yeah.
Even social
It's
kind
not-
of gets into the mix when you
Yeah.
start
2
talking about
points.
Facebook
2
exchanges.
points, very briefly. We're short.
That wasn't the first one.
Yeah, sure.
If you only get
And what's the score?
So the first point is, if you think about it, think about 3 ends of a triangle, right? You have an advertiser who's trying to reach consumers using inventory that's coming from a publisher. Everything in between is some mix of technology and services, right? Eventually and really the one player that we have missed in this, in a lot of this discussion is the publisher.
Yeah, but
A
it wasn't
publisher can
relevant to the
increase
discussion
their
ever in the
yield,
beginning.
they can make sure that they're providing the right kinds of inventory, they can do audience extension, there are various different things possible. So that's point 1. The second thing is, differentiators between the pipes that we talked about DSPs. So for advertisers, if you're considering this, and you really should, take a look at various different things. What are the minimum guarantees? What are the algorithms they use? Who has what kind of data center? Is there a minimum commitment period? These are all key things to talk about with your vendors while you're going about a decision.
Tushar, I'm sorry. Yeah, it's last point. If the last one, but
So I'll stick to basically. I think the fundamental of marketing doesn't change. So end of the day, it's a relationship with brand and audience. These are the enablers, and this is ever-evolving ecosystem. It will evolve more. So I think we shouldn't forget the fundamental. Rest is automatically come in place.
okay. Yes or no? Have publishers or will publishers become redundant once they're display publishers?
No.
No.
Planning on display publishers?
No,
No.
they have to make the content. They're
Never.
going to
We-
be
we-
incredibly
we-
valuable.
Planning on manually buying publishers whose inventory is on DSP?
Oh yeah,
No.
media placement becomes redundant.
Media placement
Except
becomes redundant.
you want to be in certain media still. It's just that the execution is through the platform.
I
execution
don't
is through the
completely agree.
platform.
Don't completely agree.
Yeah,
There'll be always gateways and impact areas which will remain.
yeah, absolutely. It's
Only impact and traditionally,
Gateways.
impact, where is it? Okay, fantastic. And guys, one last thing from me. This is reality now. It is not something of future that we were talking about. It is now, it is real. Start asking right questions to your agencies. Start asking right questions to DSPs. These platforms are available. Start asking these right questions to networks. This is real. Display can be bought very programmatically, and start looking and storing your audiences. Quick questions. I mean, we don't have time. I mean, actually, should we do questions? Because, all these gentlemen and myself will be available outside. But yeah, we can quickly take 2 questions.
Hi, this is a question for you from the agency perspective. So let's say that I'm running a campaign and all the data, all the cookie data is being stored and looked at by the agency, right? There is no contract which says that you cannot use this data for my competitor, right? And you are talking about leveraging third-party data for optimizing the campaigns. How do I be sure, or how do I ever trust an agency that, okay, they won't use my data to run a campaign for my competitor?
So we do sign contract. There is contract, and we take specific permission from client before we start collecting data.
So these contracts, so you're saying that it's all true.
There's a
all
legal
that.
framework which
Yeah.
exists, and we do sign that.
All right.
Can I say if you're so obsessed about that, you can have your relationship directly with the DSP, or you can use a third party and give me an opportunity to sell a little bit of my company as well. Use Precision Match for this. Everyone is sold it.
Yeah. We have another question here. Please tell us who you are, where you're from.
Hi, I'm Sumit. As per publisher perspective, I want to know, does use of DSP, RTP will affect revenues to publishers also?
Very good question. Yeah.
I think I can probably take a crack at that. So Ozone obviously has a pretty wide publisher network, right, with direct relationships. What we see also is that, or what the trend, let's say in the US, is for premium publishers and premium inventory, right, your tier 1 inventory, to be exposed through what's known as programmatic guaranteed, okay, which means that it's still available on RTB, but you're setting a rate, you're deciding who's going to access that inventory. You could potentially even open it up to a limited set of advertisers who can then bid on it, and therefore the rate doesn't just stay at X that it was before. It could go up, a little bit more on an impression by impression basis.
Yeah, so we're seeing private exchanges between publishers and advertisers starting to happen in many countries.
So it's a very important, it's a topic in itself actually. I didn't bring up publishers, it's a topic in itself. But very quickly, if I'm a publisher, if I put all my inventory on exchange, do you think will I make less revenue or will I make more revenue? If what I was making earlier, by selling it directly.
You've got to make more, otherwise you won't do it. That's the whole point. You'll only do, it's like a ratchet. You'll only do it when you make more, or you'll stop doing it when you make less.
So the publishers all have yield management programs.
Let me maybe try putting it this way, right? So for your remnant inventory, more likely than not, you'll end up getting a little bit more, right? For your premium inventory, if you're smart about it, if you associate that with either data or you limit the set of people who are having access to it, you should end up having the same revenue or more.
Fantastic. Last question, please. Sorry, just last question.
Request.
Yeah, last question. Yeah, here.
Hi. Just curious, so if, say, an advertiser goes to a network and then he places it on an exchange, he goes via exchange, do you mean to say that data is lost on an exchange and the network doesn't keep it? You talk so much about data. So does it mean that if someone comes via an exchange, but still through a network, the network is not going to keep your data?
Can I just take it on in? Possibility, yes.
So if that is the case, I mean, depending on the answer, then is data just the point for RTBs? Just the winning case for RTBs? Is data the only point?
Can I say yes to that data is one of the most important winning point of RTBs and the access to 100% audience, right? That you can reach out to audiences.
So just, I think what you mean is, I mean, data could be people's postcodes, it could be anything, right? But I think what you're referring to is audience, someone's audience, actually going, I'm an advertiser, here's my audience.
He has two questions.
Here is an identification of an audience, and you say, that's my audience, right? That's my audience, I don't want that shared. And I think you need to be with a trusted partner with a good contract. That's it, trusted partner, good contract.
And his second question was, the only point on RTB, using RTB is data, only selling point. In my opinion, yes and no, because that's one of the major points. And the second point is that you can reach out to 100% audience as well. You don't need to plan now. You don't need to buy publishers. You can reach out to. You can just go on to DSPs and
reach out to so you would say generically, if you would put it like that, it is efficiency, scale, and transparency. They're really the three key benefits, if you like, from the change.
And if you're a significant advertiser on digital, mind you, you should start protecting your data.
Start it now. Yeah.
Start it now.
Yeah.
And you can either use agency contracts to do that, you can take DSP direct relationships, or you can use a company like Precision Match to do that. But we can do, thank you very much. Time's up. It's been looking at me.
Right. Thank you so much, Manish, and all the fellow panelists. And I missed out to a very important announcement earlier, which